There's something they teach you early in physics that most people never actually hear, and once you hear it, you can't unhear it. And it's this: observation alone will never tell you what's actually happening. When I first started studying physics, I thought science was basically sophisticated observation. You watch things carefully enough, long enough, with precise enough instruments, and the truth reveals itself. And that's not what physics has taught me. What it has taught me is that observation is the starting point, not the destination, because what you're seeing is almost never what's actually occurring underneath. And a rock falls, you observe it, you can describe the arc, the speed, the impact, but without understanding the mechanics, gravity, mass, the curvature of space-time, you're just watching a rock fall. You're not understanding anything. And if you try to build a worldview from that observation alone, you can eventually be wrong. And this is the thing that separates science from just looking at stuff. Now, here's where it gets complicated for me personally, because one of the thinkers I keep coming back to is Jiddu Krishnamurti. If you're not familiar, philosopher, spiritual teacher, spent his life pointing at the nature of consciousness conditioning and what it means to actually perceive something clearly. And Krishnamurti puts enormous weight on direct observation, pure awareness, seeing without the filter of past experience, memory, or conceptual overlay. He would say if you can truly observe without the observer, you touch something real. No technical background, no physics training, just one of the sharpest minds of the 20th century pointing at the act of perception itself. So here's the tension that I sit with. My physics training says observation without understanding misleads you. Krishnamurti says purified observation is the most direct path to truth. Who's right? And I think this is actually why physicists and philosophers tend to reject each other. And I think both sides are missing something. Philosophers, the great ones, have a superpower. They ask questions from pure intuition. They don't get bogged down in equations or peer review or what's currently provable. They can look at reality and say, something about this framing feels wrong. They can sense when a question is deeper than the field it's being asked in. But without technical grounding, those questions can float. They can be beautiful and completely unverifiable. They can gesture at something real and still lead you nowhere because there's no framework to actually test, build, or prove anything. Physicists have the opposite problem. They have the language, the tools, the discipline. They can prove things, they can build things. That's extraordinary. But the technical rigor can become a cage. When everything has to be measurable, quantifiable, peer reviewed, imagination gets quietly, strangled. The physicist starts discounting things that don't fit the current framework instead of asking whether the framework is the problem. And the philosopher with, real intuition gets written off as soft and unserious and unscientific. Nobody wins. What I actually think is this: the philosopher's intuition is a detection system. It picks up signals before there's language or math to describe them. Krishnamurti pointing at consciousness as a fundamental, isn't a physics paper, but it might be pointing at the next operating system for physics that no one's built yet. And the physicist discipline is the construction system. Once you have the intuition, you need the tools to test it, to stress it, and build something that holds. You need both. And the tragedy is that the culture of both fields tends to punish crossing that line. Physicists who take consciousness seriously risk their credibility. At least, you know, that might have been the case. I think as we move forward, we're understanding that consciousness is the next field. It's the next advancement for physics, and philosophers who engage with quantum mechanics without a physics degree get dismissed as I actually see this word on the screen as the script, and I don't know what it means or how to pronounce it. Dilettantes, Dilettantes, dilantit, dilantis, I don't know. So the dialogue that might actually produce the next breakthrough never happens, or happens only at the margins in private between people willing to risk looking unserious in their own field. So my first physics class taught me that observation alone, it can mislead you. But here's what I've been sitting with since. Maybe the problem isn't observation. Maybe the problem is that we've been trained to observe within a framework so thoroughly that we've forgotten we're inside one. Krishnamurti isn't a physicist, but he might be doing exactly what Einstein did. Not answering questions inside the current system, but asking whether the system is the right one. And maybe that's the superpower that pure observation actually gives you. Not answers, but better questions.